I was worried sick when my husband David didn't come home from his poker night. It was 11:47 p.m. and he'd said the game would end by 9:30. He wasn't answering his phone, and I was starting to imagine car accidents and hospital emergencies. That's when I remembered we'd set up Find My iPhone on our devices for safety reasons after my car had broken down in a bad neighborhood last year. I opened the app, expecting to see his location at Mike's house where the poker game was supposed to be, or maybe at a nearby bar if they'd gone out for drinks afterward. Instead, I saw his location at the Marriott Downtown, room 447. My blood ran cold. David was at a hotel at nearly midnight, and he'd told me he was playing poker with the guys. The Find My app showed he'd been at that exact location for over 3 hours. I stared at my phone, trying to process what I was seeing. There had to be an explanation. Maybe the poker game had moved to the hotel bar. Maybe one of the guys was staying there and they'd gone up to his room to continue playing. But even as I tried to rationalize it, I knew something was wrong. Poker games don't happen in hotel rooms at midnight. I called David again, straight to voicemail. I drove to the Marriott, my hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The find. My app was still active on my passenger seat, showing David's location as stationary in that room. The hotel lobby was quiet at midnight. I approached the front desk, my heart pounding. "Excuse me?" I said to the night clerk. "I'm looking for my husband. He's in room 447, David Martinez." The clerk looked at the computer screen and frowned. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Room 447 is registered under a different name." "What name?" "I can't give out that information, but I can call the room if you'd like." "Yes, please." The clerk dialed the room. I could hear the phone ringing through his headset. After several rings, someone answered. "Hello, this is the front desk. There's a woman here asking for David Martinez." I couldn't hear the response, but the clerk's expression changed. "I see. One moment." He looked at me. "The guest says there's no David Martinez in the room, but Find My iPhone was still showing David's phone in room 447. Can you try again? Tell them it's his wife and there's a family emergency." The clerk made another call. This time I could hear a muffled conversation on the other end. After a few moments, the clerk hung up. "Ma'am, the guest is coming down to speak with you." 5 minutes later, a woman I'd never seen before stepped out of the elevator. She was about my age, beautiful, wearing an expensive-looking dress and looking nervous and guilty. "Are you looking for David?" she asked. "Yes. You know my husband?" The woman's face went pale. "Your husband? David Martinez. We've been married for 8 years. Who are you?" I'm Jessica, and David told me he was divorced." The world tilted. "He told you he was divorced?" "He said his ex-wife was bitter and controlling and that he'd been single for 2 years." "I'm not his ex-wife. I'm his current wife. We live together. I was expecting him home from poker night 3 hours ago." Jessica sat down heavily in a lobby chair. "Poker night?" "Yes, he said he was playing poker with his friends tonight. He told me he was at a work dinner and would meet me afterward. He's been here since 9 p.m. 9 p.m.? The same time David had supposedly gone to poker night." "Jessica, how long have you been seeing my husband?" 6 months. We met at a conference. He said he was recently divorced and looking for something serious. 6 months. I thought about David's behavior over the past 6 months. He'd seemed happier, more energetic, taking better care of his appearance. I'd been pleased that he was coming out of what I thought had been a period of work-related stress. "Is he upstairs right now?" Jessica nodded miserably. "Room 447. He said he had a work dinner and would meet me afterward. He's been coming here twice a week for months. Twice a week." David's poker night was on Wednesdays, and he'd also started a weekend golf league on Saturdays. Both had apparently been lies. "Jessica, I need to talk to him. We rode the elevator to the 4th floor in silence. Jessica knocked on room 447. "David, it's me. We need to talk." I heard movement inside the room. Then David's voice. "Jess, what's wrong? Why did you leave?" The door opened and David appeared wearing a hotel robe. When he saw me standing next to Jessica, his face went completely white. "Michelle, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same question." David looked back and forth between Jessica and me, probably calculating how much we'd already told each other. How much of his lies had already been exposed. "Can we all sit down and talk about this like adults?" he said finally. We went into the hotel room. It was clear that David and Jessica had been having a romantic evening. Champagne, flowers, the bed unmade. This wasn't a casual affair. It was a full romantic relationship. "David," I said, "I tracked your location because I was worried when you didn't come home. The Find My app showed you here." "You tracked my location? You weren't answering your phone. I thought something had happened to you, so you decided to spy on me." "I decided to make sure my husband was safe. Except my husband wasn't at poker night like he told me. He was in a hotel room with another woman." Jessica cleared her throat. "David, you told me you were divorced." David sank into a chair, looking like a man whose carefully constructed lies were collapsing around him. "I can explain," he said. "Please do," I said. "Explain how you've been married to me while dating Jessica for 6 months. Explain how you've been lying to both of us about who you are and what you want." David started looking panicked, but his expression seemed more like frustration at being caught rather than genuine remorse. "I didn't plan for this to happen." "Which part didn't you plan?" Jessica asked. "Meeting me or lying about being divorced?" "I didn't plan to fall in love with you while still being married to Michelle." "You're in love with her?" David nodded. "Yes." The confirmation hit me like a physical blow. "How long have you been planning to leave me?" "I wasn't planning to leave you. I was trying to figure out what I wanted. By dating another woman twice a week for 6 months. By exploring what it would feel like to be with someone who saw me differently than you do." "How do I see you?" "Like someone whose job is to provide for the household. Like a husband whose dreams are secondary to maintaining financial stability." "And how does Jessica see you?" David looked at Jessica with an expression I hadn't seen him direct at me in years. "Like someone whose ambitions and goals matter. Like someone worth supporting and believing in." Jessica looked uncomfortable being praised while sitting next to David's wife in a hotel room. "David," she said, "why didn't you just tell me you were still married?" "Because you never would have dated me. You told me on our first date that you didn't get involved with married men." "That's right, I don't. So I told you I was divorced so we could see where our relationship led." "Our relationship led to you lying to your wife for 6 months while I unknowingly participated in your affair." David was quiet for a moment, probably realizing that his lies had hurt Jessica almost as much as they'd hurt me. "What happens now?" I asked. "I don't know," David said. "This isn't how I wanted either of you to find out about the other." "How did you want us to find out?" Jessica asked. "I was hoping I'd figure out what I wanted before I had to tell anyone the truth." "What do you want?" I asked. David looked back and forth between Jessica and me. "I want to be with Jessica." The honesty was devastating, but it was also clarifying. "Then divorce me," I said. "Stop lying to both of us and make a choice." "It's not that simple." "It is that simple. You're married to me, but you want to be with her. File for divorce and be with her honestly instead of sneaking around." "What if Jessica doesn't want to be with me now that she knows I've been lying to her?" Jessica and I both looked at her. She was staring at David with a mixture of love and disappointment. "David, I fell in love with someone I thought was honest and available. I don't know if I can be with someone who's capable of sustaining such elaborate lies. The person you fell in love with is real. I am that person when I'm with you, but you're also someone who can lie to his wife every day for 6 months. You're also someone who can create an entirely fictional life story to manipulate someone into dating you. David started looking more distressed. I never meant to manipulate anyone. I just wanted to see what it felt like to be desired and pursued and treated like someone special. I treated you like someone special, I said. You treated me like someone familiar. There's a difference. He was right, and that made it worse. I had gotten comfortable in our marriage, had stopped making romantic gestures, had started taking David for granted. David, Jessica said, even if I could get past the lying, how would I ever trust you? If you could lie to your wife for 6 months, what would stop you from lying to me? Because what we have is different. What we have is based on mutual attraction and choice, not just habit and legal obligation. What we have is based on lies. Every date we've been on, every conversation we've had, every time you told me about your past, it was all built on the lie that you were divorced. I watched David lose both his wife and his lover in the same conversation. The elaborate deception he had constructed to avoid choosing between us had instead cost him both relationships. I think we all need some time to process this, I said finally. David moved back home that night, but he slept in the guest room. Over the next few days, we had several long conversations about our marriage, his affair, and what had driven him to create such an elaborate web of lies. The Find My app, he said during one of our talks. How long have you been tracking my location? I only used it that one night when I was worried about you. But David, now that I know what you've been doing, I keep wondering what I would have found if I'd checked earlier. You would have found me living 2 different lives. For 6 months. For 6 months, I was your husband 3 days a week and Jessica's boyfriend 4 days a week. How did you manage that without either of us noticing? I told you I was busy with poker and golf. I told Jessica I traveled frequently for work and had family obligations. You both trusted me, so you both believed my explanations. The divorce papers were filed 3 weeks later. David and Jessica tried to rebuild their relationship on a foundation of honesty, but the trust had been too damaged. They broke up 2 months after the hotel room confrontation. A year later, David moved to a different city and started over completely. I heard through mutual friends that he was dating someone new, someone who knew his full history from the beginning. I eventually started dating again myself. Marcus was different from David, more direct about his needs and locations, more communicative about problems before they became crises. When he went out with friends, he sent me photos and updates throughout the evening. I want you to always know where I am and who I'm with, Marcus told me. Not because you don't trust me, but because trust is built through transparency. Marcus was right. The Find My app that had exposed David's lies had taught me that technology could reveal truth, but it couldn't create trust where it didn't exist. The location tracking that caught David lying wasn't really about the technology. It was about the fundamental dishonesty that had infected our marriage. David had been living 2 lives for 6 months, and GPS coordinates were just the evidence that finally exposed what was already broken. I still use Find My iPhone with Marcus, but for different reasons. Not to catch him in lies, but to know he's safe when he's out late. Not to spy on his activities, but to coordinate our schedules and meet up efficiently. The difference is that Marcus wants me to know where he is. David had been actively hiding his location while maintaining the facade of transparency by allowing location sharing. The app showed David was at the Marriott at midnight, but what it really revealed was that my husband had been lying to me about who he was and what he wanted for half a year. Location tracking can tell you where someone is, but it can't tell you who they really are underneath all the careful deception Sometimes the most sophisticated technology just confirms the simplest truth. If someone is lying to you about where they are, they're probably lying to you about everything else too.